How's it going, guys? Logan here from the Armor Range Model Works, coming back to the channel for the first time in quite a while. Um, Coming to you today with a very overdue review here of Model Car World Finishes by Michael Guest. And contrary to what the name says, they do military and automotive finishes. And this is going to be my go-to paint from now on. I'll get into that in just a minute here. But we're going to kind of go over everything that they offer here, and I'll give you a little insight as to why I'm going to be switching over to these. So, kind of the rundown of everything here. Like I said, they do automotive and military colors. It's a lacquer paint system. It's not acrylic. It's not enamel. It's a really, really nice acrylic. They're pre-thinned. There's paints, there's a primer, and there's several clear options. There's flat, there's gloss, different percentages rather. Semi-gloss, high gloss, flat, you name it. So, without kind of sitting here rambling on, I'll give you a good look at everything here. What Michael sent me last, I believe it was around last September. Like I said, it's a very overdue review here. Was the primer, some limelight green, which is like a sublime green, as you can see on the car back there. Some Tahiti blue. I haven't used any of this stuff yet, unfortunately. It's a little lighter to the naked eye than the video shows. It looks really, really dark on my phone here, but it's kind of like a Ford blue, or maybe like a light royal blue. Really, really nice color. This color here is a dark turquoise. We'll get into this a little more in a little while here, but as you can kind of see through the bottle there, absolutely beautiful color. Wonderful metal flake in it. Small metal flake, which is scale appropriate, and a very, very difficult color to find, actually. Sent me a flat clear for the military colors, which I also haven't needed to use yet, and we'll get into why he sent me the flat clear here in a little while as well. Olive Drab, which that's what the two tanks are painted in back here, and I've used this all up as well as the primer over there, testing it out. It's one of a couple Olive Drab colors he has, but we'll get into that in a minute here too. So, alright, this is a look at kind of a before and after. This is what it looks like before you weather everything up. I did try to pre-shade this one, as well as with the T29. One of the selling points of this stuff is that it is very, very dense pigment concentration in it. It's very opaque, which I didn't realize that the first time I sprayed it. I pre-shaded both of these tanks in certain areas, like below the turret, down in the running gear here. As you can see, this model is not finished yet. I left it in the just painted state for this video when I would actually get around to filming it here. And like I said, I appreciated some of those areas, the darker areas, and after two decent coats, they weren't real thick, they weren't real thin, they were just kind of an average spray here. It completely covered all the pre-shading that I put on there, and I did that with both vehicles. It's very, very dense stuff, and it covers very, very well, which is good news for those of you that are like me, where you don't always like to prime stuff. For the record, I did use the primer for these two tanks and a T28 or T95, whichever you prefer to call it, the American Super Heavy Tank prototype. And that should give you an idea of how much you can cover with one bottle of this stuff. I mean, these tanks here are roughly comparable to the size of an M1 Abrams. I mean, they're time and a half the size of a Tiger. They're about the size of two Shermans, I would say, coverage or space-wise. About a Pershing and a half. And I covered two of these. The T29, I actually covered two coats of this. And the T28, T95, which is actually about the size of two of these as far as actual coverage needed goes. So you get pretty good bang for your buck as far as what one bottle can really do. One thing you might notice is that the paint is actually glossy, which is really weird for an Olive Drab, you might think, but it's kind of ingenious the way my guest set this up. It goes on glossy, so you don't have to spray a gloss coat Well, first off, you don't have to spray the paint, let it dry. Spray a gloss coat on, let it dry. Put your decals on, let those dry. Do your weathering, let that dry. Then spray a flat coat and let that dry. You spray the paint on, you let it dry, it's glossy. Put your decals on, do your weathering, and flat coat if you need to. I didn't really need to with the T29. So, I mean, it saves you a couple steps and a lot of time, especially if you're used to using enamels, where, I mean, it can take several hours to, a couple days for paint to fully cure. And there's kind of this misconception that lacquer paint takes a really, really, really long time to dry too. A lot of people seem to think it takes forever for it to cure. This stuff, I kid you not, when I painted this T29, I painted it, and 15-20 minutes later I was putting the decals on it already. The stuff dries that fast. Never had an issue with the decal bubbling or the paint not being cured. I mean, it's ready to go that soon. I mean, I would recommend maybe leaving it for an hour or two, or a couple hours, half a day if you really don't feel comfortable before you put decals on. But I didn't. I put them on 15-20 minutes after I painted it. It literally dries so fast, you can spray the primer or the paint on the front of the hull. By the time you get to the back of the hull, with everything covered, you can grab the front of the hull, pick it up, and you won't have fingerprints on it. It dries that quick, which is a really, really nice selling point. If you're like me, where you got kids, your modeling time is limited, you don't have time to spend, 2 hours or 3 hours painting a model and setting it up somewhere where it's not going to get hurt, or there's not going to be anything touching it, or any dust, blah, 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 blah. The stuff dries really, really quick. You might think because it dries really, really quick, it's not a very durable paint. This stuff is tough as nails. I mean, I had, let's see here. It's primarily oils I used to weather this, but there were enamels, there's acrylics, there's pigments on there, there's spots where I rubbed graphite on with a pencil, rub stuff on with my graphite on with my finger in places. This stuff's really tough. Nothing came off, nothing chipped, nothing rubbed off. Even on the car body up here, it's a common thing for a lot of guys to worry, stretching car bodies and stuff over the chassis. You might have to worry about that. Haven't had an issue with it yet. Let's see here. What else do I got here? That's about everything on my list so far, so we'll take a little closer look as to what the paint stuff actually is here, or the colors I should say. The olive drabs that he has, they're actually based on the PPG formulas. They're actually more of a brown than they are a green, which is actually what olive drab is. Olive drab paint, there's going to be some people that are probably not going to be happy about me saying this, but olive drab paint originally was yellow with black added to it. It wasn't a green. So you can kind of tell that's what this formula is actually based on, because that's what the color looks like. When it's not weathered, I mean, this has different colors all over it because it's weathered, but this here, it just kind of looks like a brownish green. That's the way it should be. Authentic olive drab has that look to it, so spot on that one, Mike. Like I said, it's real tough paint. Put the barrel back on the way it should be here. We got some graphite on the barrel. There's a bunch of oils. There's enamels, all the streaks, fuel stains, pigments. And I mean, if you're an armor modeler, I mean, you know about picking up and handling and moving your models. It's just the way it goes. It's what you have to do to get them weathered right. And this stuff is excellent for that because it doesn't wear, and it dries really quick, so you don't have to worry about getting fingerprints all over your model as you're painting it and trying to move it around. The Automotive Colors here, it's kind of the same thing as with the Olive Drab. It's very, very opaque. It covers very, very, very well. You don't have to do 3, 4, 5, 6 coats to cover stuff, which again is a big plus if you're somebody that doesn't like to prime things. I hate priming things. It's just the way I've always been. It's kind of a corner that I cut frequently, but like, and that should show you there the pre-thinned. Everything that I've painted here that you've seen so far, the olive drab, the lime green, and well, you can't see the primer, but the primer, that was literally dumped right out of the bottle into the airbrush and sprayed. There was no thinning involved, nothing. Right out of the bottle, ready to go, which is nice. Big plus over like Model Master or Tamiya. But as you can see here, the overspray that I had tried to achieve on the pillar here to kind of replicate a real car, as it would be, I mean, you know, you're not bringing this, a derby car, to Chip Foose to be painted, so a little overspray in the pillars will add a little realism. But you'll see here that it was thin enough to get that real fine overspray. There was no splatter or anything like that, and it looks pretty good in my opinion as to realism from like a spray gun. So, and as far as how opaque it is and how well it covers, this car body was white. The trunk here, the sheet plastic was black for that. The stripping by the bumper was black. I don't have decals on this side, so this strap here in the window, that was black. All the strapping around the doors here was I believe it was white, and there was some putty and other stuff all over the body here, and you couldn't tell after you painted the green. I mean, it was one coat, shot it, good, done. Actually, it was 2 coats. My mistake. 2 pretty light coats, mind you, so you don't have to sit there and put layer after layer after layer on. Now, the only slight hiccup I have found so far, let me pull the body off here, is that the turquoise color didn't really want to spray that well out of my airbrush. You can see how I painted this here. I wanted it to be a factory color inside. Those of you that are familiar with Demolition Derby, you'll know that factory colors are pretty common under carpet and other stuff, especially in old iron cars like this from the 60s and 70s. But you can see there's some of the primer and stuff kind of shows through. That was by my design. That wasn't an issue with the paint. Like I said, it didn't want to spray as well as the other stuff, but that may have something to do with it just being a metallic. I've always had trouble with enamel metallics as well, so it may just need a hair more thinner than the other stuff, but it's, you know, it covers up pretty nice, and I wanted it to be kind of that modulated look. I didn't want it to be a saturated all one coat or all one color thing on the inside of the car anyway. But the color itself, and we're going to kind of get into what this stuff costs here. As far as the cost of it, I've told a few friends about it, and they kind of get sticker shock when I tell them that the paint is $7.50 a bottle. The primer is $6.50 a bottle, and people are like, "Oh, that's so expensive," blah 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 blah. Until you really think about it. I mean, this bottle right here is $7.50. Okay, your typical Model Master bottle, which is about half as much, is anywhere from, I mean, most local hobby shops are going to have that for over $4 a bottle. I know my local one, I think he's $4.35, I think, per one bottle of Model Master stuff. And I can't say I can guarantee you, I don't want to make you promises, but I'm betting you that the same size bottle, if you were to knock this down to Model Master size, you could cover twice as much with one of these as you could with a Model Master one. That's how opaque this stuff is and how well it covers. Another big plus is, like I said before, it's tough paint. It dries super fast. I was talking to Mike about it a while back, and he said that there's people that claim you can touch the paint in as little as 4 minutes with it. I mean, I'll let it sit a little longer than that. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it, but I'm not going to risk it at the same time. And it's pre-thinned. Like I said, this green that I painted on the car here, that was dumping it straight out of the bottle and painting it. The Olive Drab was the same way. The primer was the same way. The Twilight Turquoise, like I said, may have needed a little more thinning, but that was, you know, it's trial and error, just like everything else. The primer, as far as the quality of it, I've used up the whole bottle, and like I said, it covered a lot. I would compare it to Tamiya primer, except I'd say it's actually a little bit better because, like I said, it's pre-thinned. You can use it right out of the bottle. But Tamiya stuff, I had to thin a bit to, to spray out of my airbrush. And, you know, realistically speaking here, $7.50 for this bottle of paint. Okay, I know there's a lot of tank modeler guys that are like, oh, that's kind of nuts, but I wanted to use this color really, really bad. I plan on actually using it for the outside of a car here fairly soon. And I was scouring the internet trying to find the same color or a similar color in a model size quantity. PPG, I think it was. When I looked on their website, it was around $300 a gallon to buy the automotive stuff. I don't know if that was like a one-time freak ordeal or what, but you know, $7.50 for these. I think they're an ounce or 2 ounces, or $300 for a gallon. I mean, I think I'll take this, because not to mention, it's a lot cheaper, more economical. It's actually the small metal flake that you need for it to actually be accurate in scale. You know, it's not 1-1 style or 1-1 size metal flake. One other thing I did want to point out with these is they do separate kind of quickly. Let's see here. Yeah, the clear coat's kind of starting to do it already. I shook it up about 20 minutes ago. You probably can't really see it on the camera, but it's kind of starting to separate a little bit. Yeah, there you can see it once I turn the bottle there. You don't run into the same issue with these that you do with Model Master or Tamiya. I've had really bad luck with Tamiya doing it, actually, where the pigment settles out of the suspend and just kind of sits in the bottom, and it takes a lot of work to reactivate it. You don't have that problem with these. You pick them up off the shelf after they've sat for, I mean, when I was out with some medical issues, I mean, this stuff sat untouched for close to 2 months. And I picked it up off the shelf, I shook it for 45 seconds to a minute, and everything was mixed right back into the bottle the way it should be. And you can kind of see the turquoise does the same thing. The metal flake separates out pretty quick. And bam, everything's mixed right back into it. And they all come with this little stainless steel mixing ball in it, little stainless steel ball bearing or BB, which is a big plus for, like I said, because they separate pretty quickly. But it's a nice touch to have, especially since it makes it so much easier to kind of reactivate things after they've sat for a while. So I highly recommend this stuff. This is going to be my go-to paint from now on, since you know, Model Master, they're the ones that I'd used their enamel since I started out model building. Now that I won't be able to get them anymore, this is going to be my go-to paint. Bang for your buck, I think it is, bar none, the best stuff you can get. It's considerably larger than the AK Interactive and MIG paint bottles. God, I'll show you here. Which, I mean, I wouldn't recommend AK Interactive paint to anybody. But this is how small an AK bottle is compared to this stuff. I mean, it's about as tall, but about half as big around. You don't really get as much for what it is. And that's if you can get this stuff to spray correctly. But get a hold of Michael Guest, you guys. I highly recommend it. Even if you buy just a couple bottles to try it out, I'm willing to bet you'll like the stuff. Being that it's a lacquer, the fumes are a little on the strong side, but it's, like I've said, pound for pound, in my opinion, this is the best paint you can get on the market. Automotive Colors, Military Colors, Primer, the clear. He's got everything that you want, and even the hard-to-find automotive colors like Twilight Turquoise. Any of you Mopar guys out there, especially if you're into the big C bodies like I am, like the New Yorkers and Polaris and stuff, or the even the full framers like the Chrysler Imperials. Get some of this stuff and try it out, man. It is pretty wicked. So that's about all I got for this video, guys. Please get a hold of Michael Guest. Try some of this stuff out. He's on Facebook. Michael Guest is his name on Facebook. He's got his profile picture is a picture of a B17 909, and he runs a hobby shop in Massillon, Ohio. I hope I pronounced that right. But yeah, that's all I got for this review. Excellent stuff, Mike. I'm definitely going to be getting more from you here soon. So thanks for watching, everybody, and have a good night. Bye-bye now.